Warning, the action depicted in this brochure is potentially dangerous. Wait a second. What action? It's a kid sitting on a bike. The brochure also warns the riders seen are experts or professionals. Come on, why would a company say that?
Because they're scared. They're so scared that on this simple dust mask they write,
Warning, does not supply oxygen. Why would anyone think it would? It's got no tubes attached to it, no oxygen tank. This is a stupid warning.
But they write this because the companies are so scared of these guys.
459 cash. Get what's yours.
Get what's yours. I'll squeeze them for every dime I can.
These are personal injury lawyers. That's the specialty that does things like help get money to this blind man. Poor guy, he was blinded at work. Oops, how blind is he? Here he is driving a golf cart. This woman's lawyer says she was injured so badly she cannot work. But then, how can she do this?
Lawyers. Shakespeare wrote, let's kill all the lawyers. Sometimes I want to, but no, we need lawyers.
We do need lawyers to make sure that we follow these guidelines.
With something always going on and someone always doing something, someone has to be defended.
Right. We need lawyers and some lawsuits, but in America today, we've got too much law. And that's our show tonight.
And now, John Stossel.
Okay, I didn't really mean it when I said I want to kill all the lawyers. Shakespeare probably didn't mean it either. In Henry VI, he had Dick the Butcher say it, but the butcher believed if he killed the lawyers, he could become an authoritarian king. That's not good. So we need lawyers to protect us from authoritarians. We need the rule of law. The worst places in the world to live are countries where they don't have rule of law. You never know when you're safe. You never build anything because your neighbor or some dictator might just steal what you make. So thank goodness we have lawyers and law. But we don't need this much law. These are the rules the federal government churned out just last year, and this is just the feds, these 80,000 pages. Local governments added more. This kills people's ability to live their lives normally, to use common sense, to make their own decisions without fear of being punished constantly. So says Philip Howard anyway, and he wrote a bestseller called The Death of Common Sense. So what do you mean the death of common sense?
Well, law has literally made common sense illegal for many daily choices, especially for people with responsibility. Whether the teacher in the classroom trying to maintain order or the president trying to approve a power line.
What do you mean the teacher in the classroom?
Teachers have lost the ability to maintain order in the classroom because there's so much, quote, due process and so many procedures they have to follow to prove that Johnny threw the pencil first, that now they're scared to maintain order.
And I've heard they're also scared to touch a child because so many of them get accused of abuse or sexual molestation.
Right. It's the rule today in America that you're not allowed to touch a child. You can't put an arm around a crying child. You can't actually hold on to a child disrupting the classroom.
Teachers are advised by their union, don't do that. Just let the child cry.
That's absolutely correct.
And we have this one example from St. Petersburg, Florida. A 5-year-old girl had a tantrum. She was out of control.
Pick up the pieces.
She has her arms out, but won't really just grab her and stop her.
No, it's like it's an assistant principal actually, and it's like a linebacker drill. She's trying to sort of shade around her that way, but not actually touch her because the rule is you can't touch.
And so she holds her arm out like a linebacker for a while, and eventually she calls the cops.
And the cops come and they put the 5-year-old in handcuffs. Now, is that better for the child? And that happened, that is now the rule in America. It happened a couple of weeks ago in Queens. There are stories every month of a young child getting put in handcuffs because the teachers and the principals don't feel they have the authority to restrain, just to hold on to the child, to keep them from being disruptive.
What else is destroyed by fear of lawsuits?
No big employer will give a job reference anymore in America. They'll just say, well, we confirm that so-and-so worked from this, this time to that time.
So if you fired me because I was stupid and lazy, and I'm applying to you for a job, and they say, what's Stossel like? You don't say Stossel's stupid and lazy.
Right. You don't say anything. In fact, a few years ago, a person who was really genuinely strange, a nurse in a hospital, was continually fired for strange behavior, being in the wrong rooms and stuff. They found out later he had murdered 47 people. And if anyone had just said, this guy's a real weirdo, don't hire him, he would not have been able to get away with murder.
But nobody says anything because the Human Resources Department says we might get a labor lawsuit. Even if we say something good and then he turns out bad, we might get sued. If we say something bad, the employee might sue.
Exactly.
So just say, yes, he worked here.
Just say nothing. And then there are a list of questions you're not allowed to, I'm not allowed to ask in my firm, interviewees, like this one, which is really brimming with innuendo. Where are you from?
You can't ask that because it might violate.
Well, because I might say it, and you could say anything, in a rude way. Where are you from? Or something like that. I mean, you can do anything badly, but the whole idea of writing rules in advance to cover every situation is truly the death of common sense. People can't do their jobs.
Now, we see when we read about these lawsuits the gains. We see the headline, injured person, little girl terribly injured, family gets $1 million. But what we don't see are the side effects. One example, a jury recently awarded $6 million to someone who broke his leg sledding in Greenwich, Connecticut. But the result was that the town then decided no more sledding for anybody.
Go to any playground in America. I challenge you to find a seesaw, a jungle gym, a high slide, anything that would attract a kid over the age of 5. Because all of those things not only involve the risk, but the certainty that occasionally there'll be an accident. They also teach kids how to take care of themselves. They attract kids to the playground so they don't get fat playing their Game Boys. They're incredibly important for child development. But you won't see them in America's playgrounds anymore because of fear of litigation.
And even when you win, you lose.
You lose. It doesn't matter. 9 out of 10 juries could go your way. No one will take the risk of the 1 out of 10 coming out with a verdict for $2 million, and so everything is ripped out.
And even to win, to defend the suit, can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Completely.
Now, I made my career as a consumer reporter, and I saw these problems, and I used to cheer on the lawyers. Yeah, the lawyers will fix it. They'll pass some rule. They'll scare the bad guys. It took me a long time to see that they cause more damage than they do good. But the so-called consumer groups are still cheering on to have more law. And one called Consumer Watchdog claims you are working to benefit corporate interests while harming workers, minorities, and consumers.
That's all true. That's what I'm after. Well, that's why we have, in many of our programs, seriously, we have some of the leading consumer groups supporting proposals that I've come up with. We're building coalitions in this organization called Common Good that I run that includes the leading legitimate consumer advocates.
And the trial lawyers always say, why are you angry at us? Who but we will deter the bad guys? And who but we will get compensation for the victims? I mean, I think that's deceit, but what's your answer to that?
The current system actually doesn't work very well for those people. What the lawyers who are making all the money are, they're lawyers who congregate at the intersection of tragedy and greed. They find some terrible injury, and then they sue for the moon and take a third of it for themselves.
And they take a third of it, but when you add in the defense lawyer costs, most of the money goes to you lawyers.
That's right. That's right. In some areas,
that's a scam.
60 cents on the dollar goes to the legal costs of litigation, and the other 40, if they're lucky, goes to the person who was injured.
So it takes 10 years for the person to get their money, and most of it goes to the middleman.
That's right.
Isn't that disgusting?
It's the worst system of compensation in the world. Every other
nice to get applause.
Yeah, every other country, Germany, France, Korea, all of them have systems of justice where if the little guy's injured by a big company, they can go to court, they can afford it, and they can get justice within a year. Our country doesn't allow that because it only goes for really tragic situations and everybody else is forgotten.
Let's go on to health care. During the Obamacare debate, people talked about legal costs. It's a debate about maybe 2% of health care, but the bigger cost is the indirect harm.
What's happened is so-called defensive medicine is now, depending on who you believe, estimates between $50 and $200 billion a year that go to unnecessary expenses that we're all paying for. And it's not good for patient safety either. Because what happens is the doctors are so paranoid that they're trained not to speak up and say, are you sure that's the right dosage? Because they don't want to take legal responsibility. So thousands of tragic mistakes happen because no one in the healthcare system trusts justice.
They don't want to talk about what might be wrong. They just shut up, keep things secret.
Yeah.
And in terms of doing unnecessary things, one example of that is C-sections. Former Senator and presidential candidate John Edwards made millions of dollars suing doctors who he claimed caused cerebral palsy in the baby because they wouldn't do a C-section. Since he first sued, C-sections have become much more common. They've quadrupled in number, partly because doctors are scared of lawyers like Edwards. And that's a terrible thing. A C-section, while still pretty safe, is a much more serious procedure. It's more likely to hurt the woman, requires a longer hospital stay, costs much more. I once confronted a rich personal injury lawyer about that. For every person you help, you hurt 10.
No, John, you don't really believe that.
I do. C-sections have gone from 7% of all births to 31% of all births.
Yes, much too frequently.
Has it reduced the incidence of cerebral palsy?
What,
Not
number
a bit.
of C-sections?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it hasn't.
Well,
Same rate.
I don't agree.
You were wrong. You convinced the jury, but your science was garbage.
No, that's not true.
So I think what they've done is a crime. They've quadrupled. I mean, some people are having C-sections now for convenience, but many more people are having them because the doctors are just scared.
Right. Experts say at least 50% more than are medically indicated, mainly because of fear of lawsuits when a baby's born with cerebral palsy.
Well, you write about your solution for that, which is health courts. People can read your book to learn about that. Thank you, Philip Howard. Coming up, a contest. Our audience gets to award $1,000 to this year's stupidest lawyer-driven warning label. Contestant number 1. This thing over here, a hot tub. It carries this label that says, warning, avoid drowning. That would be good. But first, something much more serious. Did you know that lawyers have made millions of dollars off the pain of September 11th? That's next.